Hello, 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 and welcome back, people. I hope you guys feel refreshed after a little break. I'm sorry about the technical problems that we had with our previous session, but we don't have those technical problems anymore. We're wonderfully to be able to join and welcome Marcus Ryder. But before we do that, Lily, jump on stage and just give people the whiz bang tour so they know how to use facilities and all kinds of stuff. They already know by now, but let's do it again, just in case anybody's news has
Yep.
joined us.
You all already know, but just in case you're sick of the sound of my voice already. So we have two menus, especially in this session. So I'm going to refer you to the top bar, is the black bar at the very top. That is the menu for the whole festival. And obviously you can see the big button that says schedule. It's very important. That's all of our sessions, masterclasses, business clinics, and networking. You'll also see a little newspaper icon. That is the feed for the whole festival. So it's basically a chat, but it goes everywhere. So everybody can see what you said, which is obviously very useful if you're sitting in the lounge on your own and you want someone to join you. Just let people know you're in there. Next to that, you'll see the little two people icon, and that lets you know everybody who's coming to the festival. And you can also click online and see all the people that are here right now, either attending the festival or in this session. And what's great about this function, and apologies, Mr. Ryder, because I'm going to use you as an example, which you didn't know, you can connect with literally anybody via this festival, including Mr. Ryder, the CEO of the Film and TV charity. Is a function that comes as part of the platform that, unfortunately for you, Marcus, but fortunately for all of us, Simone and I can't control. So you can DM literally anybody on this platform. You can also request 10 minutes with them. Please use that function responsibly. And obviously, whether they reply to you is nothing we can do about it. But it just means, obviously, we're all about your network being your net worth. It's about taking those steps and getting to know these people, making those connections. I'm now going to refer you to the sidebar, which is the grey menu screen down the right-hand side. At the top, you'll see the little speech bubbles. That's your chat. So please do put in an emoji or say hello or type something. If you have a question for Marcus during the session, please put it in the icon below, the little QA speech bubble. That just helps me make sure that your questions get seen and that you can get in front of Marcus and ask your question. And if there are any resources that Marcus refers to during the session, you'll find them in the little icon that looks like 2 pages, and they are resources, and you can find them there. And then when this session is over, they will also be in the same icon at the top of the screen in the black bar in resources.
Wonderful. Thank you
Yeah, I don't know
so
if
much. Thank you so much, Lily. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. And let's welcome Marcus Ryder. You look after the film and TV charity, but most of us have known you've been in the industry for years. First as a producer, as a content producer, speaking really, being a real passionate advocate of better inclusion and diversity in the industry, and now as a CEO of the film and TV charity. So welcome, welcome, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. And I've known you for years as well. Full transparency, I've known Marcus for years as well. We worked together. I did my first TV job with you. You remember? Heart of
Of course,
Halston.
I remember. How I can't forget that, Simone. Yeah.
Heart of Halston, very many moons ago. So we've known each other a long time. How long have you been at the film and TV charity now? You've been there now for how long now?
So tomorrow will be my 1 year anniversary.
Wow!
So yeah. So
Congratulations!
thank you. It's really good to share my birthday with the TV Collective. Feels appropriate. So it's interesting that tomorrow will be 1 year when I started at the film and TV charity, and yesterday will be 1 year since the death of Horace Ove, the black film director who I'm sure lots of people will know, who are on this, directed the first black British, or first black person in Britain to direct a feature film, Pressure, in 1976. So it felt, 2 days apart, his death on a Saturday and me starting on the Monday. It was really interesting starting at the film and TV charity at that point, because what happened. You haven't even asked me a question. I'm just chatting away.
No, I want to, because I was going to ask you, how's your first year been, and what's the things that you've done in your first year? So you go ahead, my friend.
So the first few days really were quite they kind of set out, I think, my stall for what I wanted, because what happened was that Horace Ove died, and here was a giant of Black British film and television, and so his life had to be celebrated. His life had to be, there needs to be some kind of reception or memorial, and so I then called round BFI, BAFTA, RTS, the usual suspects, to find out what was going on, to find out if they were celebrating anything, and CDN, and at that point, BFI had already programmed, before his death, had programmed a series of his films and his works for November, and so they were going to keep on doing that, obviously, but they weren't bringing anything forward. So that was September, so that was going to be in 2 months' time. So they weren't bringing anything forward, and no one else was doing anything. And so I was in a really fortunate position, being the CEO of the film and TV charity at that point, like days in, to be able to open up the building that we have, 22 Golden Square in Soho, and just open up to the Black film and our allies and other people connected to it, Black film community, to come in and have a drink, to remember him, to toast his name, etc., and just make it an open house for anybody that wanted to come in. A week after we spoke to the family, and then that really helped define where I was going with the charity, because, and it happened really quite organically, in that people that knew Horace Ove, like the elders who worked with him, they spoke about the challenge that they faced working in film and television as Black people, and he was Trinidadian, so there was also a lot of Asian people as well, and so people of color were talking about the challenges that they faced 50 years ago. And then you had lots of young people who were inspired by Horace Ove, and so you had people in their 20s, so it's like 50 years apart, talking about the challenge that they currently face. And what was so interesting is that the challenges were the same, that, like, literally, that they were the same. And the whole point of the film and TV charity is we're meant to address the social well-being, so your physical well-being, your mental well-being, and your financial well-being, to help you have I forget the little phrase that we have, it's happy, thriving, sustainable careers in film and television, and so that told me that there's a real purpose for the film and TV charity. Hearing the people's testimony, I was like, we were needed 50 years ago, and we're needed today, to make sure that in the next 50 years, people aren't saying the same things, that people, because the way that everybody was describing the industry, Black people, Asian people, people who are from minoritized or underrepresented groups, the film and TV industry is not nice to us.
No,
it's not nice to us. And so, it's making sure that we do have that support. And you obviously do a fantastic job at the TV Collective. You identified that years ago, decades ago. And, the film and TV charity needs to pivot. And we were in the process, before I came on board, pivoting our work to make sure that we too can support.
But film and TV and charity, you guys don't just support, do you just support kind of global majority communities, or are you there for the whole kind of community? How does that kind of work? Because a lot of the work that you do, which is amazing, and it's great to have an organization that does that, is very facing the kind of global majority community. So how does that kind of play? What's the kind of balance with that?
So our work is to support, as I said, the physical, financial, and mental health needs and well-being of people working in film, television, cinema, behind the camera, right? And we've been going 100 years. And in 2020, the charity adopted EDI as also one of its, to increase diversity, to address issues around diversity, as one of its main things, one of its pillars as well. And so the question is, how do we do that? And you can do that in a few ways. So we can do that in terms of we ring fence. We have a hardship grant, and the hardship grant, you're suffering from hardship. It's a stopgap grant. You've lost your job, you can't pay the mortgage, or you can't pay your rent, or there's an unexpected electricity bill. The contract which you thought was going to come through hasn't come through. So you can apply for the money, and we can give you up to £750 as a stopgap grant. And so one of the ways in which we look at diversity is that we ring fence 30% of our grants, or target 30% of our grants, so stopgap grants, should go to Black and global majority people. 15% of those grants should go to disabled people, right? So that's one way in which you can look at EDI, but I think that's, although that's useful, I think that not everybody's needs are the same. So I started in September. Less than a month later, you have October 7th, you have the Hamas attacks in Israel, and the mental health of Muslim, Arab, and Jewish people working in film and television, but predominantly film and predominantly broadcast journalists, just went through the floor.
Yeah.
And so it's not enough to then see, and we offer free counselling. All right, so you can get 6 free therapy sessions within 2 weeks with the film and TV charity, and it's a fantastic service. It's not enough to see whether 2% of Jewish people are accessing that, whether 5% or whatever the percentage of Muslim people is accessing that. They've got different needs. They should be doing that, and we should make sure that they're accessing our services. But what we did is that we convened roundtables, and we spoke to various Jewish stakeholders, spoke to various Muslim stakeholders, senior stakeholders, to say, well, what do you need? And they said, well, what we want to increase our mental health is that we want Islamophobia training, or we want anti-Semitism training, right, or we want to say this specifically to the Charlotte Moores and the Ian Katz and the other people, high profile, CEOs and bosses at ITV, Channel 4, BBC, Paramount, etc. And we have the standing within the industry to be able to get that done. So the EDI lens can't be just about making sure that a percentage of, it's not one size fits all. It's not just the percentage of the service that is across the board goes to Black people, or goes to disabled people, or goes to Asian people. It's also about making sure that we tailor our service, because disabled people might be being affected by something slightly different when it comes to their mental health. Yeah. Or it might be that people in Scotland, for example, if we look at people in Scotland's mental health, they disproportionately abuse alcohol and food, right? And so what we need to do is we need to, one, know that, so that we can work with the Scottish government, we can work with STV, we can work with BBC Scotland, so that it isn't just making sure they're accessing our therapy services, that we do something to address problem drinking. So, or if we look at what are the problems, if we don't do that much on physical right now, and it's in our charter, and we do need to do physical. And when we do pivot to physical, and I'm hoping to do that next year, when we do pivot to physical, there will be certain physical ailments which will affect Black people, or Black women, or Asian women, more so working in film and television, more so than it might affect other people, or there might be things that affect certain demographics in the north, or whatever. And so it's making sure that our services are for everybody.
Yeah.
But we have to tailor them as well to make sure they're meeting the specific needs of different demographics. And so that's where the diversity comes in.
And I know, so you were talking about Horace Ove, and you launched a Horace Ove grant. Is that still available? And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm so happy you asked me that, Simone. So yes, let me run through some of the money that you can get, because people always like to know the money they can get.
Money. Let's talk
All
about
right.
what money,
Yeah,
because we'll get back to
let's
this
talk
now.
about money. Okay,
Mhm.
fine. So, first of all, if you are suffering hardship, so you can apply for a hardship grant. It's called a stopgap grant, and it's called a stopgap grant for a reason. I'll explain that in a minute. Of up to £750. Now, when I started the charity, I'll be honest with you, I thought £750 isn't that much, right? But what the £750 does is that it's when you get that unexpected electricity bill. It's when you get that unexpected bill that comes through, which can absolutely wreck your debts and wreck your finances. So it is enough to keep the wolves away from the door. And then we direct you to different services that can help you rearrange your debt, help you rearrange your finances. And so then you can actually so the 750 just gives you some breathing space. So then you can actually work through your finances. Otherwise, but you have to do the latter. Otherwise, we could give up to 5,000, 10,000. If you don't then do the next bit of work, it doesn't work. So the 750 surprisingly works. And during the actors' strike of last year, and the US actors' strike and the writers' strike, about almost £1 million went out of our door in
Just
those
for
stopgap
hardship
grants.
grants. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. And I
because
agree with
people
you.
were
750 doesn't sound a lot, but when you've got the mortgage or just something, just enough to kind of get you over the hump, that's an amazing.
yeah.
And if you haven't been working for a while, so that must be an amazing relief. And God, £1 million coming out is humongous.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, a lot of the broadcasters, because they saw what was happening, they then contributed more. So we're financed by the broadcaster, we're financed by the streamers, so through donation and other means. But one of our largest revenue streams is through donations of broadcasters and production companies, large employers basically. And so they gave us more money. We've got reserves, and so our trustees pulled down on the reserves and found £500,000 extra in the reserves and gave to us. So hardship grants, apply for it tomorrow. If there's a problem, obviously we don't just, it's not free money. Well, it is free money actually, but you need to show why, what's happening in your circumstances.
Means you have to justify.
Yeah, you have to justify it, and I've lost my job, or the contract which I thought was coming through, or this unexpected bill, or whatever. But yeah, so people need to apply for it.
Okay.
Then we have the Horace Ove grant. The Horace Ove grant, small amount of money. It's up to £500, right? And that's an opportunity grant. So in terms of that, that's helping, and that's for Black and Global majority people. And the purpose of that is for people to take advantage of an opportunity which they wouldn't be able to take advantage of otherwise. And so that's if you need to get a bit of kit, because it will help your career, and you'll be able to then make that next film, which you wouldn't be able to do if you didn't have that bit of camera equipment. If you need to attend a festival, because that's going to be a networking event, and it's going to be £300 to attend that festival with accommodation or train or whatever. It's so you have to show how attending that event, getting that piece of equipment, getting travel money for that interview, paying for that overnight that you wouldn't be able to otherwise, how that will progress your career. But yeah, it's up to £500, which, as I said, isn't a lot, but it's the difference between whether you can do an overnight in Cardiff and actually go to that interview, whether you can get that little bit of equipment that you needed so that your sound quality is a lot better. It's whether you can get a little bit of editing equipment so you can make that sizzle reel that you can actually get the commission. It's that kind of thing. So yeah,
And Marcus,
£500, apply for it.
Can I just ask, and can you apply, these are, I'm assuming that they're rolling, so you can apply at any time, obviously, because you don't have hardship just at certain times, so you can apply at any time. And is there a sense that, like, with there's a point that they might run out, or is it just free fall and people should just get involved and utilize them while they're still here?
So it's not going to run out, right? You know, we've been going 100 years, so
You all right?
you know, yeah, we're okay. But you can only apply once a year. So your hardship grant, you can't be like, God, I couldn't pay my bills last
Every
week,
month.
and you know, next week you then apply. You know, the whole point is that we've helped you fix your finances, so that hopefully you won't be applying again. And I'm not sure what the limit is on the Horace Ove grant. I should know that a year in, but I think that again there's a year, so you can apply again the following year. So you can't be like, oh, I need that bit of equipment, and now I need the tripod, and now I need,
Right?
you know.
I need the wheels, and I need the steering wheel now, and I need the door.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I'm doing an IKEA
Right.
shop. All right, and so we've got the hardship and we've got the Horace Ove. What else? What other funding is available?
And then the big fund, which quote unquote could run out, so to speak, and that it's got a limited amount of time, is the Real Impact grant. And so the Real Impact is, and we did a lot of publicity around Real Impact, so I really hope that people have heard of it. So the Real Impact grant was first set out, or the charity put money aside post George Floyd, but we're almost, the charity almost became like the opposite of everyone else. So everyone else post George Floyd posted the black square and said they were going to be doing lots of stuff, and then 4 years later they've forgotten about it. The charity, and I wasn't with the charity, so that's why I can like slightly laugh at it, or you know, post George Floyd they were saying we're going to do something, and as I said, they did the opposite. They didn't seem to do anything, and waited 4 years later. So they put this money aside, and so but it's great. It's absolutely great. So it's in grants, there's a whole heap of different work streams to it, but the money bit, and so in total, all the different work streams add up to $1 million, right? But a lot of that million is also in staff having to work on different programs as well, and what have you. So the actual amount of money which is going out the door, which is actually what your people here want to know, is 600,000.
Wow.
So it's over £500,000 pounds in implants, and it is 10,000 up to £10,000. So it's a big step up from the 750 and the 500 we've been talking about, right? So it's up to £10,000 for individuals, and it's up to £25,000 for organisations. The organisations need to be 50% or more Black and Global majority, and the individuals should identify as being Black, Asian, from a minoritized racial background.
And what can people? Sorry, I was going to say, what can people use the money on? But I'm sure that you were going to just go and say that, so I apologize for jumping.
That's all right. So the money it was recognised. So the whole principle behind it is that when they first, when the charity first looked at it, they did not have a Black CEO, and they were saying, well, as white people, we don't think that we should be dictating how the money should be spent to solve the problems of Black and Global majority people. What we should be doing is for the best people to know how to solve the problems of Black and Global majority people, and the problems that they face in the film and TV industry are Black and Global majority people working in the film and television industry. So what they did is that they then got about, I think it was about 14, 15 people in the end. You know, people, I can't remember all of them, but it's senior people, recognized figures in film and television. So I think Miranda Wayland was one of those 15, who's now CEO of CDN.
She's joining us next week, I believe, to do
fabulous.
Organization, yeah. Hmm.
I think Akil Ahmed was on there. Lots of different people.
Hmm.
And so you had film and television people. You also had people from charity backgrounds and experience of grant schemes. So you had Derek Bardowell. Don't know if people know Derek, but he's big in the charity sector. One of the most senior black figures in
Does he
understanding
run?
charity.
Does he like? Does he work in a charity? Does he run his own charity? Does he run
So
his own charity?
he used to be responsible for the National Lottery, giving out money for the National Lottery, and he's run a. He's a writer as well. He's written one book which I've read called No Win Race, which is about black people in sports, which has got almost nothing to do with this conversation, but it's a really good book.
Good.
And he also wrote a really good book called basically how charities are broken when it comes to black
Okay.
people.
Okay,
Right.
but not that it's that important, but he works. He's
Yeah.
worked in all the kind of major experience, working in big charities. Okay, cool.
So I feel like I'm very long-winded way of saying that they then put some criteria together, which is to say that the money, the £10,000 and the £25,000, is that you need to be able to show how that money will have the biggest impact in addressing the systemic obstacles that black and global majority people face in the film and TV industry. And so if you feel, so an example would be if you feel that there is a problem of black and global majority people not being able to sell their films abroad, and so they need to go to MIPCOM, for example, then it's about trying to create a program so that more black and global majority people could go to MIPCOM. Yeah. If it's a case of you feel that the real problem is that black and it doesn't have to be black and global majority people, it's black people, or you feel that Bangladeshi women don't have a safe space to write, and what they really need is a writers' retreat. Then you could set up a writers' retreat for
once you can show the impact.
Once demonstrate what the obstacle is, that the obstacle might be, or what the issue is, that there are no Bangladeshi women writing sitcoms. Maybe there are. I've got no idea. Right, but there's no Bangladeshi women writing sitcoms. That's the problem. Then you can show how you think that you can address that problem, and that would be the impact. And then so it's so it's addressed that. So we've done the first round.
I was going to say, and we've got a question actually, which is going to talk to what you're about to ask as well, from Sharon. Hold on, Marcus. Let me bring Sharon. I like doing this. Let me bring Sharon on stage. And Sharon's been on stage a few times, so she should be a master at this.
Come on, Sharon.
Come on, Sharon. You know how to do it, Sharon. Come on, answer your question yourself. Here she comes. I think she's going to appear. There she appears. And she can't turn on her camera. She's told us that every time she's gone on stage, but she can turn off her mic because I think she's muted. Sharon, do you want to? You're muted still. Come on, Sharon. Yeah, there she is. Go ahead. Cool.
Hi. Yeah, sorry I can't turn off my camera. My question was: is the Real Impact Fund, is the next application window November? Is that the same? Is what I'm thinking about, or is that something else? And if it is November, what kind of criteria beyond, are you an individual, are you an organisation requirement, is there to apply? Because I've heard it can be quite long and winter if it is the thing I'm thinking about. So is the next one November? And if so, is there any kind of insights you can give us beyond the individual and organisation?
Great question. Thank you.
Sure. So the short answer is no, it's January. So the reason why you would think it's November is because originally it was going to be November. So it was going to be the second round, and it was absolutely going to be November. We pushed that back to January for a few reasons. The first reason is that hopefully by the end of this month, will be, and maybe beginning of October, we should be announcing who has got the first lot of money, right? The successful applicants
Yeah.
for the first tranche of money, right? And so we think that'll be really helpful for people to see that and then think what they can apply for. So it's the other thing is that it's the first time we've done it. We've done the first round, and so we, as a charity, want to be able to figure out what went right and what went wrong with the first round, and so then we would be able to, you know, maybe be more proactive in saying, "Oh my God, we didn't get any people from Wales applying, or we didn't get any older Black women applying, or whatever." So we can be more proactive in that, and also we might want to tweak some of the criteria. You know, it's an iterative process, right? And so we thought if we did it in November, that won't give us enough time to be able to do that. So then we thought, do we do it in December? Like, oh, we definitely don't do it in December because too many people are focusing on
you just
Christmas
miss
and they're
it.
going to
You
miss
can
the
miss it.
deadlines. Yeah. And so we thought the earliest we can do it would be January. So thanks a lot for asking that question, because absolutely the original program was November. And so I was actually going to talk about that. So you give me the perfect opportunity to explain, to correct. We've absolutely said it was going to be November. We've looked at it, seen when we're going to be giving out this first tranche of money. And so that's why we pushed it back a little bit.
Marcus,
So,
will there be a tighter, sorry, Sharon, and please ask afterwards, will there be a kind of tighter criteria? I think some people kind of like, it was amazing that you could apply for anything, but like, it's like going into a shop and saying you can have anything, it then becomes too big. So will there be kind of a little bit more boundaries in terms of criteria, in terms of what you are looking for, what you are going to fund this round?
So the short answer for that, I think, is that I'd be surprised if it isn't. The longer answer is that I have a team of absolutely brilliant. Instead of the CEO randomly saying, "Oh, well, you know, it could have been a bit tighter here," we've employed, you know, consultants to actually look at, to analyze what went wrong, as well as then also say this went right. And so part of their job is to then give feedback, and then for us to then say, so I don't want to preempt that. They're actually meant to be doing that. But yeah, if I'd be shocked if we got everything right the first time, you know? And so I would be assuming that we didn't get everything right the first time. And what you've just said, Simone, is I've heard that similar feedback. So yeah, I'd be surprised if it isn't. But at the same time, you know, we're getting professional feedback and going through that process.
I get that.
I mean, what
sorry.
I was going to ask is, I mean, I'm quite happy with its wide parameters. It was more the fact that I've heard that it was quite a big application form, but fair enough. But I think my question following on from that is then, if it's January, is that when the window opens, and how long would you have for it to close? Because to be fair, I'm running out of money for my company, and I was hoping that if it's November, I was thinking, God, maybe there'll be a decision early next year. So I can't remember when it opened before. If you're about to announce in October, what the window of time is between the end of the closing and decision making. I think so. Are you saying it's going to open in January and close, say, maybe in February?
It would be open in January. It was open for, I think, 3 weeks last time, if my memory serves me correctly. And so that would mean decisions, we're talking end of March, possibly beginning of April. If it's the same criteria as, if it's the same kind of timetable as last time.
Thank you. Yeah, very helpful. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
like, helpful, but could it be sooner? I mean, it's I mean, I was just talking to, literally an hour ago, I was just talking to a really experienced really senior person of color who runs who everybody would know if I mentioned their name, who runs an indie, and yeah, it's to hear that they are suffering. It's insane. I mean, it's horrible out there. And it's affecting all indies. You're seeing really well established indies, diverse led indies, white led indies, etc., who are really, and I find it really trite and slightly annoying when I hear the phrases like survive till 25. I mean,
I was going to ask
Yeah.
you. Yeah. What would your advice be, or what kind of, you're at the coalface, and you're obviously, particularly with the hardship grants, people are coming to you in quite dire situations, sharing what they're going through. I mean, firstly, kind of what is keeping you up at night at the moment, kind of looking after this as the CEO of the film and charity, what is the main thing keeping you up at night, and what are you trying to do to kind of resolve that, I guess?
I think our mental health, even more so than making sure that, even more so than the finances. I mean, the two are absolutely connected. Financial stress is a major cause of mental health. So, but I think it's looking at making sure that we look after each other, making sure that we support each other. Because if we're not mentally healthy, we won't be able to take advantage of the different opportunities that come up. That's why something like this, the stuff that you do, Simone, is so important, to make sure that, I forget the phrase that you said about your network is your net worth. That's true, but your network is also your support structure. It's we've known each other for years, Simone, and many a time, we have supported each other through, tough and tougher, and those phone calls, or other shared friends that you and I have, those WhatsApp groups, those drinks, etc. We need to support each other, or else, what's the point of surviving if you're absolutely destroyed? So it's making sure that we look after ourselves, making sure that our mental health is good, and then we need to think about how do we actually have, sustainable careers. How do we make sure that our indies work? How do we make sure they get the commissions? How do we make sure that, that we're not, so many of us are freelance. How do we make sure that we are employed on that next project? So it's.
What do you? I mean, like, there's a couple. So there's kind of, I think there's two things for me. Obviously, we'll, like you said, survive till 25. From my position, and I don't know, I was on the call, it's really difficult to see how things are going to change. Like, I'm not sure that advertising are suddenly going to run back to broadcasters and say, I'm going to give you some more money, that all of a sudden, thankfully we're not going to have a COVID or anything like that again. So that kind of appetite for content, they said I've got too much content, there's too many production companies, there's too much this, too much that. What does the future really look like from your sitting in your position? And obviously you've got to be thinking about how you're going to support people working in the industry. So you'll be thinking kind of a little bit more long term. When you're kind of thinking a slightly more long term, what is it that you're seeing? What does the kind of future look like? And how can we kind of prepare ourselves to be best to kind of deal with that new future? What does the new, because we're kind of trying to get to normal. What does the new normal look like?
I think so nobody knows. Anybody that says that they know what the new normal is or whatever is lying, right? But I suspect we're going to see a smaller industry. And so as such, what we are seeing is more people looking at leaving the industry. And so what we need to make sure is that people leave the industry. The people who leave the industry can take the best advantage of leaving the industry. The transferable skills that we have, that directors have in terms of project management and what have you, that production managers have. It's exactly, we can do any I was a TV director. I'm now CEO of a charity. You know, the skills that I got, and talk to any of my colleagues at the charity, I'm constantly referencing. My terms of reference are, how do we make this program? If you can put a program together, you know, you can project manage. And so
But with
we
the,
need to look at that. And there are organizations like TV Switch Up, which help that. We need to look at portfolio careers. We need
Pat Young's
to.
going to come and talk to us. Sorry, just to jump in, but Pat Young's going to come and talk to us about kind of building a portfolio career. I can't remember when, but he's coming up pretty soon. But,
Yeah,
but Marcus, there's an insatiable appetite for content, and all of us here are content
absolutely.
producers. So how do we
Absolutely.
get? Yeah, what are the ways to get the content out? So as the industry continues to contract and get smaller, people still want content. I'm getting a sense that people still, from where I sit, audiences are more curious and their tastes are wide and they want to know about different communities and yada yada. So the need and the want for more diverse and representative stories is now more than ever. How do we get these stories through, or how do we ensure that we don't slip back, or that the kind of diversity challenge doesn't become greater because there are less of those stories because people are more risk averse? You know how the things set, the kind of trail of things that happen, particularly when there's challenges. Black and brown people tend to be the first to feel the brunt. So
Yeah.
how do we protect that?
So I think there's two things. I think there's, which seem to be slightly pulling apart. There's now more the barriers to entry to get your product out there are lower than ever. So because of social media platforms, the barriers to entry are lower than ever. It's easier to get your product out there than ever before. However, the ability to finance and have a financial model that works for you, so you're getting out there without making a loss, I think is harder than ever. So you've got, nowadays, if you're doing a drama, if you're doing something scripted or unscripted, back in the day when you and I were working, Simone, you have an idea, you pitch it to the BBC say yes, or you pitch it to Channel 4, Channel 4 says yes, that's a green light, you go. Nowadays, you pitch it to BBC say yes, and give you 50% of the money. And then you have to run around and find someone else who will give you 25% of the money, and then run around and find somebody else, Canal Plus, that will then give you another 25%. And a green light is no longer a green light. It's just a green light and part of the jigsaw. So I think what we need to do is we need to become more adept, and it's not easy, in recognizing that it's no longer, that there's not going to be one person that can save us, or one. It's not going to be the BBC. It's not going to be Channel 4. It's not going to be ITV. It's not even going to be one of the streamers. It will be all of them, and we need to look at what's going on. And people I'm talking to are looking at what's going on in Europe. People I'm talking to are looking at what's going on in certain parts of the African market. Also, even surprisingly, looking at what's happening in the Asian market. Well, not surprisingly, but also looking at what. Just yesterday, I was talking to a guy that was on the bench at Golden Square, and started chatting to him, and as you do, and he was just selling a documentary to in China, looking at kind of exactly what he's looking at. I think it was a wildlife program or something. But yeah,
just kind of looking at something, really looking at
you have to look, absolutely, you have to look at all the different new opportunities, and then also looking, you have to keep looking at different business models. And so I was talking to somebody else who had, another indie that had made programs, and then they have this IP, they've got all this massive back catalogue, and so they then and I don't think she'd mind if I identified her. It was Kat Lewis of 9 Lives Media, right? And she has a YouTube platform, and she then puts out a lot of her previous IP, because she owns it, even though she made it for broadcasters, she owns the IP. So she puts the programs out on on YouTube, and that's passive income. She earns tens of thousands of pounds every year, which isn't massive, but it might even be hundreds. I don't want to do Kat a disservice, right? But the issue, but the thing is that then that passive income, she literally has to do nothing. She doesn't have to make anything, right? Then enables her to fund development money and be development money to then be able to pay for something else. So when I hear about those different ways of making passive income from YouTube by exploiting your IP, when I hear of people talking to China, and it was the Chinese streamer, I think it's Billy, I think, and I lived in China and I didn't even know the streamer. So it's recognizing that there are big streamers, there are different streamers all over the world, and so we just need to make sure that we don't think just Disney, Netflix, Amazon. We need to think really broadly. We need to think, just all over the world.
And
it's hard. It's really hard.
We had a session earlier on today with David Cornwall from Scorpio TV. He was talking about different streamings and different streaming services. We were hoping to have Nate Parker join us from Mansa, which is a new black streaming service that's happening in the States. But they're coming to the UK next year. So he felt that it'd be a better place to talk next year once has a clearer strategy on the UK. But I agree with you in terms of finding new strategies and new ways to get your content out. And I suppose that's the whole reason why this festival exists. Natty, I see your question about a place that solely concentrates on film funds where we can all find out where there's a central place to go. Marcus, do you know of a place? Let me show this question on stage. Do you know of a place? I mean, I know that you can go to various different places, and obviously I would jump in and say, obviously, TV Collective is also a good place to keep abreast on all the opportunities and funding opportunities that are going on in content making. But looking at this question, Marcus, is there any way you can also recommend?
So no, I'd be really surprised if Hidden Away at BFI. Exactly BFI has got insane resources, but sometimes BFI is so large that you'll find that several streams in, oh wow, and they'll have created this amazing resource and document that no one can find. I love you, BFI. I love you, Ben. I love you all. Right. But yeah, they create amazing resources, and sometimes it's not great. But I see someone has just posted the British Council support for so yeah, they'll be out there. So whether it's the BFI, British Council,
and it's also looking at different ways of kind of monetizing money as well. The monetizing films and grants and stuff.
It's really hard. As I said, back when I was making films and more importantly making programs, it was an easier time. It's, as I said, you pitch to the genre commissioner at BBC, or you pitch to the genre commissioner at Channel 4, and if they liked it, they greenlit it. You made the program, they gave you your money. You then, rinse and repeat.
I hear it. But sorry, Marcus, but just to jump in, I think one of the things, speaking to an American producer, we got Paul Gaines coming and talking from Array, who works with Ava DuVernay. I can't say Dreadlock's name, but everybody knows who I'm talking about, the filmmaker. One of the things that they're calling it is the disruption in the States. And I find that really a helpful and a powerful term. And they're talking about finding different ways to get content out with digital. And I would really encourage people in the UK, particularly those of us who've struggled in the past to get our stories heard, that there is this moment, maybe a small window, and feels really uncomfortable. But there is a moment where kind of maybe we need to the industry will shake up a little bit and things will change. So kind of still thinking content, people still want content, people still want your story. So how do you get it out there? And I suppose that leads me kind of neatly, 4 years, and actually maybe not so relevant given the news of Ade. Do you see obviously you saw the news of Ade today?
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Brilliant. For those who don't know, Ade Rawcliffe over at ITV has been made head of people or something very similar. Is that right?
She's head of people. She's only the third ever Black person to be head of an HR of a FTSE 100 company.
Wow!
So it's a massive achievement.
I'm going to give her some props for that. Do you think that they're kind of sitting in the position that you are, and you're kind of talking to broadcasters and production companies all the time? After, I think that there's been a feeling, particularly after Miranda, although Miranda's come back, so maybe it's inappropriate to say Miranda's coming back as head of CDN. But given, I'm looking at my questions, I'm answering my question myself. But given Miranda left Amazon, I think that there was a sense that DNI is kind of dropping off the agenda 4 years after George Floyd. It's not really that important. We've kind of forgotten about that slightly. From where you're sitting, is that a sense? Do you get that from when you're talking to broadcasters and production companies? What's that kind of, is that what you're feeling from them?
There was a very real fear. So I'm hearing two different things. When I talk to people who work in EDI for broadcasters, there is a very real fear that they are receiving less resources to do their job.
Yeah.
You know, and if you think of money as being a proxy for power, you know, it means that there is less investment, that they have less power. So when I talk to EDI people, I hear that again and again and again, that they feel that there's been a pullback, you know, and we saw you see that in the States. You've seen lots of high profile EDI people move on, and so there was definitely a problem there, and you see less. And so we saw Joanna BA leave BBC. We saw Miranda leave Amazon, and it's hard to, you know, people do leave positions, so it's hard to know, to extrapolate from two people leaving whether that's a trend or whether people leave positions. And Jessica Shibley's now there at the BBC, so you know, we might not want to read too much into it, but yeah, there was definitely that fear. At the same time, when I talk to people in the industry, very senior people in the industry, about EDI, their language seems to genuinely be that they don't seem to recognize that. You know, they would point to
when you say recognize what?
Recognize that they're retreating. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So they would point to the fact that Miranda is a superstar and CDN is going to be, you know, stronger than ever. They would point to Ade Rawcliffe has, you know, who is possibly the most important and most senior person directly working in EDI for any public service broadcaster, who's just been made head of people. You know, so you know, they
do you think there's a new way?
That.
Do you think that there's a new way that we're doing it? So like the kind of traditional DNI workers that we had that would be at the broadcasters, that respectfully, if there's any DNI workers, I've had the conversation with most of you guys, that we're never quite sure what they do. We're never quite sure if they're there to protect us or to protect the industry, the company they work for. I think it's more the company they work for. But do you think that those kind of roles in terms of the DNI workers, that we're going to see less of that? What do you kind of think the future holds? TV, DNI, kind of where we're going? We've had an awful summer with the kind of racist, you know, the racist troubles that we saw, and the kind of society feels a bit kind of crazy at the moment. Everything feels a little bit up and down. Everybody feels kind of concerned. Obviously, there's a, you know, you can see that the industry is shrinking. What do you think is kind of the future for DNI and kind of people of color, and how they're going to be supported, and what we can be doing?
So I think there needs to be a reckoning as to what is the point, right? And so there was an argument started to emerge that you'd hear quite often, that better diversity was better for business, right? So it was a kind of a bottom line, you know, it's your bottom line kind of argument. It's a financial argument. And those arguments, if you look at the academic research, they're wobbly at best, right? You know, so because you get all white companies, you know, think of Apple, you know, they did not have diversity in their DNA when they started, and you know, so yeah, there are other companies that absolutely had diversity in their core and they, done really well, but it's not as simple a correlation,
Mhm.
better, at least not in the short term.
Mm.
In long term,
Yeah.
on average,
Yeah.
companies with more diversity, but often people aren't thinking long term on average. So,
Mm.
that's part of the problem. So my thing is that I think there needs to be a rethinking and what is the purpose of film and television? And the purpose of film and television for me is you can't have a functioning society. You can't have proper democracy unless you have um, all the views represented. You know, if you want to avoid things like the riots of this summer, you know, you need to actually make sure that Muslim communities and immigrant communities and Black communities, not just individuals, but communities are properly represented. You know, we recognize, the example that everyone picks is, the post office scandal.
Mm.
You know, we needed a really good drama um, with regards to the Windrush scandal, so that we could have got that fixed.
Mm.
We needed we need really dramas about some of the police shootings. You know, Chris Cabba. We need really good dramas about some of the things that are afflicting the Asian communities, the Black communities, other different communities.
Mm.
For me, it's a democracy. For me, it's a fundamental. If we want a well-functioning society, we want to have diversity. And those diverse stories.
So for society, it's important. I mean, thank you so much for taking the time. And like you say, if you guys want to hear more of the conversation, Marcus really chops that up really powerfully on the podcast, where he kind of really goes in, talks about how representation really impacts how society thinks, and obviously the kind of impacts they had on the riots or the summer's troubles. Marcus Ryder, before we kind of wrap up, any more? Is anybody? We're going to wrap up in about a couple of minutes. Has anybody got any last comments or thoughts or questions before we say thank you to you? I mean, it's been great, and I could talk to you all the time, and particularly the kind of change in face of diversity and how it's changing over the years and the troubles that we're currently seeing and how it impacts on our community and how best we can kind of move through. Have you got any last thoughts in terms of how we can be supporting, like you were saying, obviously networks and building networks and stuff like? Have you got any last thoughts in terms of how we can be supporting each other, or firstly how we can be supporting each other in this moment, and then also how the charity is going to hopefully have further support in this moment?
Okay. So I'm going to give a really quick example of how we support each other. I've got the job that I have because of you, Simone. And I can say that really with absolute confidence and thanks, because what you did is we had a symbiotic relationship. That sounds a bit perverse, but we had a symbiotic relationship. Exactly. Don't tell anybody. This is public now. In that you had your platform, and I wrote blogs for you. I wrote pieces for you when you didn't have anybody writing any content for you. Right? It enabled to get me out there as somebody who was talking about diversity, and it got me out there as a thought leader and established my position early on back in the 2000s, the early 2000s, of really talking about diversity, right? And I'd like to think it helped the TV collective as well, all right?
Yeah.
And that was you and me recognizing that we can't give each other money because neither of us had any money to give, right? But I was able to grow the support that you gave me, the platform that you gave me, and from those seeds of those blog posts, I have been able to become the CEO of a charity. I was able to launch the Sir Lenny Henry Centre for Media Diversity, etc., etc., etc. Right, and so that's how we support each other. You know, you, and I'm really thankful, Simone, for you giving me that platform. And I'd like to think that I helped you
Definitely.
as well. And that's why, you know, I'm to you now, you know, and because my success is based on your success is based on mine. Pat Young's success is going to be chatting to you later. He said he's chatting to you later. You know, so we support each other, you know, and people at this moment say, yeah, but everybody knows Simone because it's the TV Collective, and everybody knows Marcus because, you know, he's always around, and everybody, right? When we was doing that in 2008, 7, whenever it was, right? No one flipping knew who we were. I remember you going up to Edinburgh and you asking a question at absolutely every single thing you went to, and just saying Simone Pennant from the TV Collective, just so you could actually get people to hear your name, right? And people were like, wow, this TV Collective is getting everywhere, right? And it was just like you know, going from one panel event to another panel event. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. But, no, it's true. And I think that the point about, but I think the point about my success is your success is my success is a mantra as a community that we should hold. Because, like, I think when we first came into the industry, and I'm sure that you'd agree that there was a lot of fear, like everybody wanted to keep things to themselves. And I think as we've grown and become more confident, we're all sharing and we're supporting, and have networks and communities are growing, just like the old boys networks. We're creating those kind of communities and feeling safe among ourselves, that people can reach out, particularly among our leaders. It's amazing to see, does somebody know whoever that works at Netflix, and you see everybody kind of chime in and support. So I totally agree. And, you know, the clue's in the name, we're called the TV Collective. So we are all about kind of championing and supporting and creating a collective. What did I say? Divided we fall, united we stand, right? Is the one that they say. Absolutely. Well, listen,
stay
Marcus.
united, Simone.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure for you to be here. I'm really touched and humbled by your words as well. I totally agree, and I feel the same way, that it was kind of all of our kind of collective efforts have allowed us all to get to this point and to continue support and kind of create a better and more diverse and more representative industry. So thank you, Marcus. Thank you guys for being here. It's been amazing. This is the last session for this evening.